Okay, just a general overview of the truck. Donaldson type, low restriction, high volume air filter. The France bypass oil filter. Of course, back there you can see the turbo heat shield from the keep the heat away from the air cleaner. And over on this side is the fuel filter, France submicron fuel filter, and upgraded lights here, the later sport type headlights, because the originals really sucked. And here is the subject of this particular video. Up on top right here is a hob switch set to close the contacts if the fuel pressure drops below about 7 PSI. Sets off a flashing red light and an alarm. What you see over here is the electrical sending unit for my fuel pressure gauge. All of this goes down and attaches in through this hose back down to a fitting right on the input to the VP44 fuel pump. And you probably can't quite see it down there in this video. It gets kind of dark down in there. And over in here you can see the bypass valve and fuel return line that regulates the fuel pressure going into the VP44 because of the Walbro high pressure, high volume fuel pump. And this limits the fuel pressure to about 15-16 psi at idle, drops down a pound or two under heavy load, and generally works pretty good, can't complain. So we'll go inside and see how all of this works. Alright, here's the gauges, and something that's been added since the earlier still photo that I showed earlier is the additional flashing LED over on the left just above the top meter. That one is there for when I'm transferring fuel from my in-bed 50-gallon fuel tank. Kind of lets me know and keeps it fresh in my mind that I'm transferring fuel. A few times I've forgotten it going down the road and have lost a few gallons of fuel when I overflowed the tank, so that was a good addition. And of course the one on the right there is the one that will flash when the fuel pressure drops below about 7 psi, and also a chime will sound. You'll hear that when I turn on the ignition. The chime is located right up in here, right in underneath that. It's a fairly small one and fits pretty good. Anyway, I'll turn on the ignition. You'll hear all the usual chimes, plus the added one that is there for the low fuel pressure. Okay, the one that you can hear primarily here is the one for the fuel PSI, and you can see the light there flashing away. Get your attention pretty well. And of course the chime is something you can hear even above the noise of the loud Cummins. Now I'll turn on the engine and you'll see that lower fuel gauge there, fuel PSI, come up, and as soon as it comes up, the flashing red light will go out and the chime will stop. Here we go. Fuel pressure comes up to its normal running PSI of about 16, and that's about where it normally runs. It'll drop just a pound or so under heavy load up a steep grade and that sort of thing, and that's the way it normally is down the road. Now as soon as I turn off, I'll have to turn the ignition key off and then back on quickly to arm the chime, but you'll see that as soon as the pressure drops back down, why the alarm starts sounding and the light starts flashing. And there you go. Believe me, it will get your attention down the road. Works very, very well, and pretty inexpensive overall.